Okay, so I, I guess we should start with a meditation posture. Yeah. So sit firmly on your seat. If you're on a chair, then put your feet flat on the floor or on a cushion and make your back straight. And your shoulders even, not arched forward or back in a straight line. And your elbows away from your body so that your air can circulate between the arms and the body. And the eyes can be closed or slightly open or even fully open if that's what you like. And the breathing should be natural and gentle through the nose. Just relaxed breathing. The head very slightly tilted forward so that the nose is directly above the navel. And the tongue on the roof of the mouth so that any saliva during the meditation just slips down your throat. And we're going to meditate from within the heart space, not the brain. So bring your focus to that sort of area within your rib cage, which we call the heart space. And just be there. Feel that you are there in that space. And we're going to begin with the meditation, which we could simply call Who Am I? And it's an exploration of our identity. Very simple questions, but quite profound opportunity. So with your mind in your heart space, when I ask you a question in a moment, answer it not with words, but with a feeling in your heart space. And this is the question. Who or what is sitting here? Feel the answer in your heart space. Who or what is sitting here? You don't have to give the answer a name just yet. Just feel it. And chances are that you feel that there is something which is what we call me. And that in answer to my question, at your heart space, you felt something. And we're going to meditate, we're going to explore whether this me that we feel is real or just a mental construct. When we feel it in our heart center now, it kind of feels real, I guess. Like there's a real me here. It's hard to say just what it is, but it feels like there is something. something that distinguishes us from the world around us, for example, or from each other. It's a feeling of me, myself, which is different from you, yourself, or they, themselves. And it feels like this me is somehow real. And if it's real, it should be findable when we search for it. That's the meditation, to search for it. So keep feeling it in your heart center. And we're going to ask a very simple question as the first step in our search, which is it part of our body and mind? Or is it separate from it? Because it should be one of those two, shouldn't it? It should either be part of or separate from our body and mind. There isn't actually any third possibility. So keep feeling this me in your heart space and ask yourself, is it one with or part of my body? You can go into different parts of your body if you want to check. Right? Is it one with my brain? Or is it one with my whole body? Certainly if we stand in front of a large mirror and see our whole body in the mirror, we will feel that's me. But when we analyze what is the body, it's really a collection of cells and many parts. Could even say a collection of atoms. And there's nothing among them which is actually me. So when we look at our body in the mirror and say that's me, it's just a kind of label or designation. There's no real me in our body at all. But it is suitable to call this body me when we look at it like that. There's nothing inaccurate, not somebody else. It's just that me is just a label, which means it's a mental construct, because it's the mind that labels it me. So come back to the feeling in the heart space. in answer to the question, who or what is sitting here? And we could say, well, the feeling is actually not of the body, it's of the mind. Because it's the mind that feels things. The body's like the conveyor or vehicle or instrument of the mind. That's reasonable. So keep feeling in the heart space the answer to the question, who or what is sitting here? And let's see if it's part of the mind. This means we need to know what the mind is. Well, sure, it's the mind that's doing this meditation. The mind is awareness, a consciousness that can think or feel, that can know things, that can experience. All of this is what the mind is. And another thing about the mind is it keeps changing moment by moment as it takes different objects as its focus. Like my words, your mind processes my words one by one and makes sense of the sentences. But this happens through the passage of time. So the mind is a continuum of moments of awareness, consciousness. And that continuum goes back to earlier today or yesterday or the day before, and it will go forward later today, tomorrow, the next day, and so forth. This continuum of the mind is a series of moments of awareness. So then we come back to this feeling at a heart center in answer to the question, who or what is sitting here? And we discover that the answer to that question, this feeling of me, is an awareness of the mind, a thought of the mind, or a feeling of the mind, which means it's a concept of the mind, or an image or picture in the mind. And when the mind goes to something else, we forget about it for a while. So this kind of breaks down the idea that there's a real me in the mind. So if it's not part of or one with the mind or the body, maybe it's outside of them. For example, we might say my body or my mind, which gives the feeling that this real me is a sort of owner or controller of the mind and body. Let's just explore that. Maybe that's the truth. But there is a real me outside of the mind and body, or separate from them, that kind of owns them. Well, if it's separate from the mind and body, then it would suggest that if you got up from your seat and left the room with your mind, you could leave the me behind. That is impossible. Because no me separate from the mind and body has ever been seen or encountered anywhere. Again, it's just a feeling sometimes that there's a me that controls the mind and body or owns it, like my mind, my body. It's just a concept of a separate me. And now we come to the crux. If this me which we felt inside a heart space, in answer to the question who or what is sitting here, is neither one with the mind and body, nor separate from them, it's not real. It's just a mental creation, something that we label to this mind and body which are here. Like in the song, it says, me, a name I call myself. Me, a name. And why do we call this person me? Just to distinguish it conventionally from other people. And now consider this. There are 3 of us right now doing this meditation. And each of us labels me to a different person. Which confirms there is no real me beyond it being a sort of convenient label, which is useful, but doesn't exist separately from its own side. It's just labeled by our mind. And if you want to label somebody else, you would say you, or they. We might use names like I might say Lou or Barbara, and you might say Andy. And these are just labels to distinguish us. But if you look among all my parts of body and mind, you won't find anything that is Andy. So where there was the feeling in our heart space of something in response to the question who or what is sitting here, now there's just a sort of big space, an absence. And in that big space or absence, there's a kind of freedom. Freedom from something that we've carried, a kind of burden of self, which is sometimes quite heavy. And in that big space or absence, it's just vanished. Because it was never real. It was just put there by our mind. And now we see that it's actually not real. In the sense of existing separately or by itself. It's just we can say a label, me or Andy or Barbara or Lou, but this is just something very provisional. The reality is this vastness and this great depth. Which is a freedom like the sky. In Buddhism, we call this emptiness or selflessness, which is also just labels for an experience, which is like space or the sky, where there's nothing to grasp onto, where there's a kind of infinite freedom. Okay. I don't know if you've got me on Spotlight, but you can click on Gallery View if you want to see everybody equally, which is quite nice when we've got such a small group. Anyway, we're going to have some open sharing now, and it'd be really nice to hear from each of you. Anything that you want to share from the experience of this meditation. And we will do another meditation before we finish. But let's see where we go with a little bit of discussion. Would one of you like to begin?
I can begin.
Thank you, Lou.
When we first started, the first thing that came, it was very hard not to put things in words, very hard. So the first image that came to mind was being a teenager and looking in the mirror and knowing that behind my eyes, there was something that wasn't what was in my body, all that angst and stuff that you go through as a teenager. I just knew there was more to me than whatever it was I was thinking and doing. And I knew it had to be in there someplace, but I could never find it. So that's the first image that came to my mind.
And do you want to tell us a bit more about the journey after that?
Then I started thinking about something I heard about a week ago. And they were talking about the clear light mind and how the clear light mind is luminous. And the whole gist for it was that the clear light mind, the substance of it is shared by everybody. But what distinguishes me from you is the part of the clear light mind that knows, or the knower. And they were also saying that may be how bodhicitta works, is that the knower, because we all share the same substance, that's how we give each other love and stuff like that. So it was an interesting concept. I haven't thought about it a lot, but that's what came up.
And that came up in your meditation just now?
Yeah.
And what, you had some experience of that, did you?
No. I said, I just heard about it a couple of days ago. And
yeah. So I'm not. I don't want to go into a discussion too much about
exactly
from somewhere else. I'm really interested in what your experience was in the meditation as we went through the analysis.
Where did it go from there? It was easy seeing it's not being part of my body. So then I immediately jumped, well, it has to be part of my mind. And then I started thinking, well, maybe it's not a soul, but maybe it's a collection of energy that inhabits this body temporarily. And then this collection of energy, when I die, goes to another body. And I was grasping onto the fact that I wanted this collection of memories I didn't want to lose. Yeah. And I can accept, that in Buddhism, you don't lose it. I mean, all your past life, everything you've experienced is in there someplace. And I was just trying to put words into it, something.
But it sounds like you wanted to still to be something.
Yes, exactly.
And I tried to take you a little bit on a journey with the mind in seeing that it's just a series of moments and that there isn't really anything there. A series of moments of awareness. Did you get that at all during the meditation, or did that pass you by?
Yes, I did. I got that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's another meditation I do where someone taught me, you sit on the bank and you watch your mind go by and you watch
like
all the thoughts, like a river, except you're no longer in the river, so you can watch it.
Yeah.
But then comes the point of who's sitting on the bank watching it.
Absolutely, that's the problem with that one. But still, you're actually the river. You're not sitting on the bank, but maybe sitting on the bank is a good stepping stone to realizing that you're actually the river. But no, it's good. Yeah, thanks very much for sharing. Barbara, would you like to share?
Yes, sure. That was a lovely meditation, and I really kind of came into touch with the who am I? Um, a number of like maybe 5 years ago, I had a huge existential crisis where everything around me changed, and why did it change me? Like I saw how interactive everything was in defining who I was, and um, when you were talking, and talking about the mind being like a series of moments, it's I think of this like cellular biological concept that I had heard about, which is like the semi-permeable membrane. That's the way things come in and out of the cell. And I feel like sometimes that is my mind. It's like things come into awareness, like some things I don't want coming into my awareness, and I can somehow, not let them. Some of them I can keep out, but the ones that come in, it's like they're there for a while, and then they kind of leave, processed differently, and put back into the world. So for me, my mind is it was a more rigid thing a number of years ago where I was dependent upon everything else for who I was. I was a sister, a daughter, like whatever, all these labels. But when you let those go, then I don't know if that is emptiness, where you just have this kind of energy that's in flux, and you let things come in and go out, and it's um, it's not a bad thing. It was when I had this rigid view of it, but
Yeah.
now that I have a more open view, and think of the concept of the dependent arising,
Yeah.
that I am in my context at all times, and I'm also creating the context. So that's where my mind was going. A little bit scientific, a little bit, existential. I kind
Yeah.
of ran the gamut.
Oh, wow. No, I think that's really inspiring, actually, everything you said. And
Oh,
I'm
good.
really struck by how you had a rigid concept and then you had an existential crisis, and it sounds like it kind of blew it apart.
Yes, yes. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Although for a while I thought I could have lived my whole life without experiencing this, but now I
Yeah.
look back and it's like, no, this is my whole life is experiencing this, so it's okay.
So it was a great liberation.
Yes,
At the
although not
time, it
a
might have been a little bit scary at first, I guess.
yes, not convenient and not comforting, but it was necessary, and in the
Yeah.
long run good.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh,
That puts a lot of what I was thinking into a different kind of concept that I can work with. So that was
Oh,
very
great.
helpful.
Great.
yeah.
I do have a wandering mind when I'm meditating, and when I'm more fixed, it becomes. I think it's I've heard uh, other teachers talk about how meditation is supposed to not just be this escape, but it's work. So I get into that a lot, and that's a little bit less comfortable. But in the end, I think it adds to like the vocabulary of who I am and what
Yeah.
life is, and it's worth that.
Yeah, the way I look at it is that there is a bit of work, and I think we did that when we were exploring, is it in the body? Is it here? Is it there? That's the kind of work. It's analytical, and yeah, it's kind of using concepts in order to analyze concepts. But then ideally, you get to a place where it just opens out and it's an experience. That's what we kind of need in a way. And then we kind of integrate with that experience and hold it just in a kind of relaxed but focused way, and hold it for as long as possible, actually, because that way it really integrates with the consciousness that we'll have after the meditation. It starts to transform the way we experience ourselves generally in life. And yeah, that transformation is a kind of liberation. It frees us from the tyranny of this fixed me that we believed in. Like you said, the sister, daughter, all that. That's really helpful, because we have all these labels or identities that come from different directions, according to different moments in our life or different relationships. And then people see us in this fixed way, and then we kind of absorb that, and we think, well, that is me. Like, let's say your partner says, oh, you're a boring person. And then you feel, yeah, there's a boring person here. Or somebody else says, oh, you're so beautiful. And you think, oh, there's a beautiful person here. And actually, these are just kind of concepts that we take as reality. I mean, there might even be a grain of truth in each of them. That's not the point. The point is it coalesces, it congeals in our mind into something fixed. I think you used the word fixed, Barbara. Yeah. And that becomes, I don't know, that starts to that really dominates us. And if we look back, that's been happening all our life. And from the Buddhist point of view, previous lives too. So it's kind of like something that we take with us unless we free ourselves from it, which would be nice to do before we go. So the next time we're not a slave of it. We actually enter into the freedom from the beginning. That's something worth aspiring for, in my view.
And that could be embedded in our very language. I mean, anytime you use an adjective, like you said, like beautiful, or you use a noun like male or female, it automatically puts a box, and you're inside that box. That's the label you're stuck with, so, or they stick you with.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, in a way, it comes from outside, because we're taught it from the very early childhood when we first get language, or possibly even before language, when there's a sense of self and other. When we just feel the separateness. And of course, there is a feeling of separateness, especially like when we're alone or something. But when we really analyze, me and you are just relative words. There is no real me or real you. They're just labels, which goes back to what you said about the clear light, Lou. Maybe we're all of the same substance, but we're kind of differentiated by the mind that labels. I don't know. That's an interesting point. We certainly have different bodies. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
But we do exaggerate the separateness. That's part of the problem, isn't it? Would you like to say anything else, either of you? I mean, I'm ready to lead another meditation when you're ready. Anything else to share?
I'm good.
I'm good too.
Okay, let's do another meditation, and this will kind of take us more or less to the end of the session, although we might have a bit of time for sharing again. We'll see. Okay, so again, take a meditation posture. And again, bring your awareness within your heart space. Just give your brain a rest in a way. And from within your heart space, feel your connection with others. And we'll start with the others in this session, because we've just been talking to each other. So it's quite interesting, even though we haven't met physically in the same physical location. Nevertheless, we are connected across space. And you can feel that in your heart center. And of course, it's no more real than the feeling of a real me sitting here, but nevertheless, it is an experience. the relative experience. And when you connect heart to heart, it's a bit different from connecting through the eyes or the ears and so forth, or even different from touch. Like if we shook hands, it would be a different kind of connection. But heart to heart, there's a deeper kind of closeness, or even we could call it intimacy. We're actually closer to the experience of non-separation when we feel it from the heart center or heart space. And this feeling of non-separation is pretty close to what we must have felt in the womb, when we were literally physically an extension of our mother's body, and we were close to her heart. And we felt the vibrations of her experience day and night for 9 months. And when we came out, we may have been placed on her tummy or, towards her breast. And again, we were kind of heart to heart. And for most of us, this is our fundamental initial relationship of this life. And it's pretty much as close as you can get to an experience of non-separation. In fact, they even use the term separation anxiety, coming from being separated from the mother for longish periods of time during your first year. It can lead to various problems. And undermine future relationships. So we're feeling this similar non-separation, initially just between the three of us. But we can connect in other people in our life. And gradually sort of create a network of connections. And obviously, we start with people that we know personally, like family members or friends or neighbors. But it's not too difficult to extend this to people that we don't know. Like people that we pass in the street or at the store. And usually we connect with our eyes, but we can connect with our heart. So stay within your heart space and just allow these things I mentioned to stimulate this experience of connectivity. And you can take it beyond humans. you can experience it in relation to animals, depending on what animals you encounter in your life. It could be dogs or cats or horses. Or birds. And as you gradually evolve this experience of a network of connections, you gradually enter into a space where you're part of the web of life. And it can also extend to plants like trees. Or elements of nature, such as rivers, mountains, the sky and the earth, the sun. Because at some level we are intimately connected with all of this. And if you stay within your heart space, focusing on the feeling, the experience, rather than lots of words, you experience your heart opening up. Such that you feel the whole world in your embrace. A little bit like when your mother held you. A feeling of non-separation. So allow yourself to enter into this and just absorb with it as a feeling, an experience. And however they might conceive of themselves, none of these beings in the whole web of life is actually separate or real in the sense of existing by itself. Just like the me from the first meditation. And this freedom from the real separate me that we experienced before is possible for everyone, every being in the web of life. It's like their own reality is simply this absence of a real me, even though they don't realize it. And knowing this can bring about a great tenderness towards others. Just as the mother wants happiness for the new child, we want everyone to experience this freedom for themselves. Stay in your heart space and keep dissolving into this experience of non-separation and universal selflessness. And finish with a sort of wish or determination to integrate this experience more and more before we die, so that when we do die, we can go forward with this awareness. Okay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Barbara.
Yes, thank you, Andy, and thank you, Lou.
Okay. Safe journey onwards, everybody.
Yes, likewise. Thank you.
Yeah.